It's time for a session with New England Hockey Journal's The Rink Shrinks. They aren't licensed psychologists, psychiatrists, or psychotherapists, but they know a thing or three on how to keep it real at the rink and in life. And now, here are your shrinks, Brian Ross Yandel and NHL veteran and Hobie Baker Award winner Mike Motto.
Hello and welcome to session number 14 of the New England Hockey Journal's The Rink Shrinks. Would first of all like to thank our sponsors, Paul Vincent Hockey, Laura Stam, the Boston Imperials, the Boston Hockey Academy, and RD3 Education. We have a great episode up ahead. We have Jeff Cox, who joined us in studio and discussed his prospect pulse and playing at the correct level and different things. Jeff does a great job. And then we were also joined via Zoom by Meghan Duggan, a three-time Olympian, gold medalist, captain of the Team USA, it was a real treat to chat with her as well.
Yeah, it was a great interview, and look forward to hearing her thoughts as far as the sponsors. They're the ones that make this show happen, so we want to thank them. So what's been going on here?
No, nothing. We've been Motts and I, we did a little defensive clinic this week, so we've been spending quite a bit of time together, which has been fun, and it was great working with you all week and kind of getting sending the message and trying to teach kids the right way of playing hockey.
No, I thought it went great. All the feedback from the parents and the kids enjoying the instruction, and I was happy that I could lean on my wonky hip so that you had to do all the demonstrating.
Yeah, you did a great job, though. I mean, you grinded, and I mean, you're a month post-surgery from having a total hip replacement, and to be out there and demoing some one-legged stuff. I mean, you looked like the bees with Grizzlick down. They might need somebody. You never know.
Yeah, I did text Donnie, but
still waiting for that reply.
Yeah, he's busy.
Still says unread.
Yeah. No, but yeah, that was great. And it's a pleasure working with you because we're on the same page with what's important and those little details of the position that go a long way. And we'll just keep it rolling and keep trying to coach the youth up.
Keep coaching them up. But speaking of youth, we're in that recruiting season. There's a lot of chatter about guys going to different teams and phone calls and emails and all that type of stuff. And we do touch on it a bit with Jeff. But talk a little bit about your experiences with that stuff in the past, Mott.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, it's mating season, and there's parents and different teams that, sometimes it gets into a situation where you get overwhelmed as a coach, when you have people reaching out. But then on the other side, if you have to be the one reaching out, it kind of can get a little uncomfortable. So this recruiting season, quote unquote, and tryouts, sometimes it's not really a tryout. We talked about it before as far as, there's a lot of people in leagues and teams out there, so there's a lot of kind of knowing a player, and if they want to make a jump, usually you have a spot for them. And the tryouts at times can be tough to identify good players too, because sometimes there's a lot of players out there and they're just jammed in. So the landscape that it's been going, it's been interesting.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is making sure you're playing at the correct level. You don't want to be the fourth liner or the ninth forward on the team. You want to if you are going to make a move and you're going to look to advancing yourself and try to, whether it's move from one program to another and play for a better team, a better coach. You want to make sure that you're gonna fit in and you're gonna be impact. You're going to play impactful minutes and things like that. I think that's important.
Getting those puck touches
and going out there. I mean, I think any coaches, especially at the youth ages, that are playing power plays and penalty kills consistently are a little bit nuts. But it's do your homework and make sure you're choosing the right coach. And the thing that I think is very important is if you are going to leave a program and you're gonna you're looking to make a move, is be honest with those coaches. Be upfront. I've had an experience in the past where a player kind of led me along, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll be back," and then the night before tryouts, it was like the email at midnight, "Hey, we're not coming back. We're going somewhere else." And I think that's just a really crappy way of handling things. It's kind of a kind of life lesson, right? It's be honest, be upfront. If you're looking to make a move and you're gonna leave one program and go to the next, then at least be honest with the coaches so that they can fill your spot, or at least have some players into some pre-practices and things like that.
Yeah, I've had that situation kind of come up a few times, and it's tough to kind of bite your tongue at the end.
It's a bad bounce. Yeah.
But yeah, just that's being.
Then you get the email, and it's like you really wish you met them in a parking lot.
Yeah, or maybe just throw the skates on and
let's play some one-on-one.
Yeah, or just, let's take this to another level. Full contact, men's league. So yeah, as far as that, being honest that's just really a good way to be anyway. So, but if you're switching teams and get kind of in that situation, good communication is always best.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I think is interesting, because you see parents now, and they kind of, my experience at the younger levels is like, oh, I'm going to let my son make the decision. And my thoughts are like, I think you openly have a conversation with your son or your daughter about what team you think they should play for, or whether they should stay put or go to another team or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if I let my 9-year-old make decisions in my house, we'd be eating Fruity Pebbles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and going to bed at midnight, and would be homework wouldn't be getting done. PlayStation all night long. You know what I mean? It'd be like Dr. Pepper and the Cheerios. You know what I mean? Like, who's ultimately going to make that decision? I think it's the parents.
Yeah, I think the parent hides behind that sometimes.
Yeah.
When they're kind of driving the bus, but yet, we're going to let, Bobby make the decision, and it's just a little bit of a shield, and again, stand up and have a conversation with the player and, your son or daughter, and just, you can make the best decision for them.
Yeah, for your family.
Yes, correct. And, and then stand in front of it. Don't say that it was his decision or her decision and then just kind of skate away. Because a lot of times it could be like a popularity thing, and it might not be the best decision for the situation. But as you said, you just be honest and be communicative to the coaching staff, and just be the parent at the end of the day.
Yep. And one of the other topics that have come up, and I'm not sure your take on it, we did put something out on Instagram, and it was about captains. But at the youth level, like, when do you think you pick a captain? Like, when do you slap a C on some kid's shirt?
I thought it was a great question, and there was some good banter about it. And
Big Bud came off the top rope.
Yeah, he did. I do feel, it's not necessary to have a captain. I mean, at younger ages, the sole purpose really on ice for the captain is to speak to the refs and communicate, what they're, just kind of communicate back to the coach. But that's not what happens at the youth level. No,
they can't talk to the coaches. What are they going to say?
No,
what's a 10-year-old kid going to skate over to the referee and like ask him a question about?
Exactly. So there's really no reason for that on ice. What it can do is, if a kid is a leader, good practice habits, and just kind of has that leadership quality and that character, it could play into that where you want to, kind of reward him or her for that reason, and, show that this is the way we want, you to work. But I don't think that's necessary.
Right. I think a lot of times it becomes a popularity contest, or it's a coach trying to appease a certain parent. Or I think there's nothing worse than a coach choosing his own kid as the captain. I think that's a huge just no at the younger age groups. I find it quirky, and when I see kids doing it or teams doing it, I just think it's a little strange. It's just, you want to encourage all these kids to be leaders. Everybody's going to be a different, have different personalities and different roles kind of in the room, right?
Yeah.
But to single a kid out or two kids out and say, "Oh, you guys are the captains," I think is silly.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. I want to take it a step further. And how do you feel about goalies being captains? Even let's just say from high school on.
I think it's a weird look.
It's a terrible look.
It's a terrible look on the jersey.
Again, like they're not talking to the refs.
No, I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I think they can be leaders, but again, like you just said, kind of the role of the captain is, let's picture a college game or a high school game. They're going and meeting with the referees and talking to them before the game about expectations and stuff like that. The goalie's not. He's sitting in the, he's not going to skate out of his net and go talk to the referee or whatever it may be. So I think it's quirky, and I think seeing like a letter on a goalie shirt just looks awkward.
Yeah.
It just looks weird.
Yeah, I saw a few goalies as captains, and they can be leaders. They can be great in the room. They could be one of the better players, but I don't think it has to be.
And let's be honest, most goalies are a little odd and kind of to themselves, right? There's a handful that we've all played with that are unbelievable.
Right.
I mean, I think every
that
goalie
that I've show.
Yeah, it could be a whole show, but I think every goalie that I've played with has a unique personality that they know how to capture the room, but a lot of times they're the guys like before the game they should be kind of hyper focused and they're sitting there like visualizing. They're not talking and kind of pumping the guys up and things like that. They're kind of worried about. It's kind of like that starting pitcher, you know what I mean? Like they're sitting
Leave him alone.
Like don't mess with his mojo, like whatever he's doing is working.
Yeah, so that's, I just thought I'd bring it up because I saw it a few times in the high school games that I've seen.
Yeah, weird look. The other thing, I don't know if you caught it, Motts, was the Penguins. I was watching something, they did a practice and they were all using the old school Sherwood throwback wooden sticks, which I guess the reason why it stood out to me was even at the NHL level, like these guys are still having fun, right? They're still like, it's something new. The goalies were using wooden sticks. It was just a change of pace, and I'm sure they had a couple laughs with it. I know I was late coming to practice the other night, coming from another game, and Mike Greer did the righties played lefty, and they did like an opposite hand game, and like the kids loved it. Now they've asked to do it every practice, you know what I mean? So, but just keeping things light and loose and having some fun, I think, is great.
Yeah, and there was some footage of the Bruins doing something on one of the off days. It was a skill day, but they were playing keep away, but with their own puck.
I saw that. Yeah, that was awesome.
It's good stuff. Yeah, when I was in World Juniors, we were over in Finland and we played righty lefty, opposite hand. Yeah. And Team Finland was in the stands watching, and they're like, "Look at these guys!
This team's gonna be awful."
Yeah, it's amazing how much it throws you off. Like you almost can't even skate. Because you're just so used to it. But we ran through a couple drills and then we had a scrimmage, and like guys are up in the stands being like, "Oh, this is gonna be a cakewalk playing the U.S. team." That's
awesome. Well, there was my father always told us the story about Chris Chelios, how his father was like right from Greece, and he told him that he wanted needed new sticks, and he's like got him a dozen sticks, and they were all lefties. And he's like, "You break those, I'll buy you new ones," type of thing. And I think he actually, like, there was footage of him actually, like, turning his hands over and shooting a puck lefty in a game. I think he did learn it. Obviously, I've never had the conversation with, I don't know Chris Chelios, but I thought that was an old Buddy Yandel story about playing the offside and getting comfortable. Because like you said, it changes your footwork, everything. It's just the whole dynamic of it just throws you off.
Yeah, I remember seeing Chelios switch to the opposite side and have a couple dump ins.
Yeah.
NHL games. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's good stuff. It reminds me of the old, like, when you see a bad hockey movie that was made and they like
Slapshot 2?
Yeah, well, when they're like coming down the ice and whoever's doing the stunts is like a lefty, and then all of a sudden he like changes to righty, and it's like, dude, that's one of the biggest things that I look for when I'm watching this movie. Like, why is the guy all of a sudden flying down the ice and he becomes the opposite hand? Come on, like, at least get the guy to shoot the same way consistently.
All right. Well, I mean, you never know. That could be the deception.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of deception, I know it was about a week or so ago, but we talk about it, and you and I worked on this this past week, but that, giving false information and, using deception, and it's not, it kind of gets something that is taught to forwards. But it's so important, I think, from a defensive aspect. The play I'm thinking of was, it was overtime versus the Rangers, and Charlie McAvoy was defending a 2-on-1. I forget who the Rangers players were, but he kind of gave some false information like he was going to go attack the puck carrier. The guy kind of bobbled it, was a little bit nervous, ended up throwing a lazy kind of saucer pass across. He batted it down, threw it up the ice, and eventually, Marchand, I think it was, went in and scored. But it was just a great teaching moment, and something that I've tried to stress to my defenders, and again for all levels, but deception and giving false information isn't just an offensive thing, right? It's not just a fake and try to shoot or whatever. It can be used all over the ice.
Yeah, that was a great example of skill, and then that processing and false info like you're talking about. But he knocked it out of the air and had the whereabouts to bank it off the wall to space so Marchand could go in. It was a great example of that, and that's one thing where we talked about these camps that we're doing, and the D-specific skills, the tendencies that you see, we don't really practice them a ton in full practices with teams. So it's really nice to peel it away a little bit and then kind of dig in on some of these little details that make a big difference. And that's one thing. Like on a 2-on-1, there's a number of ways to play it, but then there's the best way to give them the false info, but always being aware of taking away that backdoor pass, or that puck cannot get through you. And he did it perfectly. So if you have a chance, pull up that clip, and he kind of fakes towards the strong side, kind of folds into the middle, protecting that weak side, and then knocks down that pass. It was actually it was great to see, and the Bees came out on top.
No, it's awesome. Again, and that's something that we stressed. It doesn't matter what position you play, right? It's good for a defender to understand that, a forward. It doesn't matter what position. It's good for your goalies to start thinking about that stuff and process it. Start thinking the game and really visualizing and where you can use these different things and learn those tendencies. But
and like we talked, at the end of one of those drills, the angling, right? So when we talked about angling, we did this drill where it was just in a short space, but the concept itself is what you wanted to accomplish. And we stressed when you're watching the games now, look for this stuff. Look for someone taking the inside ice and keeping their speed and defending while they're skating forward. So that's the little things that the details, and now if a kid happens to watch a game, watch the Bruins, watch whatever game that they're going to be watching, and they pick that up, they're going to learn something. And that's the cool part about coaching, right?
Absolutely. Well, I think it's time we send it over to Jeff Cox. This is an excellent interview. We discuss his recent article in the Hockey Journal about when is the time for a player to jump to the next level. So looking forward to you guys listening.
Do you want to become a better hockey player this summer with Paul Vincent Hockey? Since 1972, Paul Vincent, currently the head skills instructor of the Florida Panthers, has been developing NHL and college hockey players. Paul Vincent stands by his saying, there's always room for player development. Players such as Patrick Kane, Jonathan Taves, Keith Yandel, Matt Grzelcyk, Patrick Sharp, Adam Oates, and many more have trained with Coach Vincent and his staff and have outstanding results. Join Paul Vincent this summer at one of his 4 Massachusetts locations, Canton, Saugus, Middleton, and Falmouth on Cape Cod. Registration is now open for 2021 camps. To reserve your spot today, go to pvhockey.com or call 978-807-4070. That's pvhockey.com or call 978-807-4070. Paul Vincent is ready to get back to work this summer. Are you?
All right, and our next guest, we would like to welcome Jeff Cox. Jeff is the prospects and NHL draft analysis for the New England Hockey Journal and New York Hockey Journal. You can read his content daily at hockeyjournal.com. He also appears on the New England Hockey Journal TV shows Prospect Pulse segment with Mike Motto, my co-host here. Jeff also serves as the director of player personnel for the Omaha Lancers and is recognized as one of New England's authorities in the hockey prospect space. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, Jeff and I chat on the New England Hockey Journal TV show, and he does a great job at having a pulse on all the prospects and the draft, potential draftees coming up, come in the draft and local and national. So appreciate you coming on, taking the time.
Yeah, no, excited, looking forward to it. Talking.
So Jeff, you wrote an interesting piece, and you know we're all it's getting to that, as I call it, kind of silly season, mating season, whatever you want to call it. You know, kids are looking towards new teams and going in different directions. And you wrote a great piece that I was fortunate enough to read in the Hockey Journal about, you know, when should a player make the jump to the next level. And, you know, we just wanted to get your take on that and your thoughts on it and go from there.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating kind of topic. And like you said, it is silly, crazy, all the above, just absolute nonsense, some of the stuff that goes on. But I think the bottom line is too many people are rushing to get to that, you know, glory stage where they can, you know, think that they've made it, instead of just enjoying the journey and being a good player at where you're at. You know, like I said in the piece, don't go from Mass High School to Dexter or, you know, Thayer, you know, if you can't dominate Mass High School, because if you can't dominate that level, your chances are you're going to be sitting in the stands or, you know, riding the pine on the fourth line.
And be that all-important ninth defenseman.
You know, and I'm not trying to pick on those places, but, you know, it applies for everywhere. If you're, you know, playing the EHF at a younger level and you're on, you know, can't even keep track of what they're called these days, but, you know, if you're not on the elite level, and don't go fishing for something that you're not, you know, just enjoy the journey. And I think, you know, if you can dominate the level you're at, then start thinking about making that next step. Like if you're, you know, a great prep school player, think about going to the USHL. If you're not dominating USHL as an 18-year-old, you got to stay in the USHL. You know, go to college as a 20-year-old freshman. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, and if you're, you know, in college, don't jump at that AHL spot. You know, when you could return to a Boston College or a BU, Northeastern, Merrimack, whatever it might be. UNH.
Thank you. Thanks, Moss.
You know, so I just think that's kind of to me, from my experience and talking to people, seeing it myself firsthand, I just think too many people are kind of making a rush judgment instead of just enjoying the you know, the development.
And you mentioned proceed with caution in the piece, and I think that's great advice as far as not rushing it.
Yeah.
And would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think what I really meant by proceed with caution is, you know, no matter what it is in hockey, whether it's finding an advisor or, you know, making that next step in your game, you want to make sure it's the right decision, because I think it was Mark Dennehy said to me a couple of years ago when we were talking after a Merrimack game, you know, in the press conference area, you know, like you might only have one chance. You know, if you sign early and you leave Merrimack or whatever hockey school it is, and you go to the AHL and you're not ready, you might get sent down to the coast and you might never have that chance again. Or if you're a coach, you know, like if, you know, Mark Dennehy had went from Fairfield to the New Jersey Devils instead of, you know, Fairfield to Princeton to UMass to, you know, Merrimack, and, you know, he's now got a great AHL job. But if if he took that job, you know, I'm, again, not trying to pick on any individual person, but it kind of makes sense. And I think no matter what it is, you have to be ready for that next step in your game, because you might only have that one chance. And if, obviously, when you're talking youth hockey, you most likely have another chance. But if you're talking, if you're going from a Braintree High or a BC High to Thayer Dexter, and you end up on the fourth line or in the stands at Dexter, you might never get that look. Whereas if you had stayed at BC High or stayed at Hingham or wherever, you might have eventually gotten all those puck touches that you're not going to get at the better prep schools, and would have gotten a better chance, or maybe even a chance that isn't as flashy as a Dexter or a Thayer. You know, you might have gotten a chance at a, you know, whatever prep school that doesn't have the name, you know, and you get the opportunity there. I just think it's so frustrating to see so many good players leave places in hopes of something better, and then it ends up backfiring.
Yeah. Now, what would you say, like, you know, okay, well, I can leave, you know, X school, you know, my public high school, and now I have the opportunity to go to a Cushing or a really good prep school, and I get to practice against those guys all the time. You know what I mean? So how do you, there's some benefit to that, even though you might be playing on the fourth line. Maybe they play more games. They're on the ice more. I can just speak from my Cushing take. We were up there. It was, it was the first time that I really focused kind of around the clock. It was after school. We did a work. We worked out. Then it was right to the rink to shoot pucks. If the ice was down, it was playing shinny, things like that. So there were some benefits there, right?
No, I think I said in the article there's an exception to every rule, and I think it is great to be pushed and challenged in practice, and have that competition and kind of see what it takes. If you're a kid at a local public school team, you might not have the experience of going up against guys like Cushing, like you said, Thayer, Dexter, that have Division I commits, and guys that know what it takes, or at least kind of know what it takes to get that logo on the line chart. So I think there are benefits. I think the world we live in now is a lot different than it was when you were at Cushing, and I think a lot of that is for the worse. I think back then kids were committing as juniors, seniors in junior hockey. Now everyone's kind of looking for that instant gratification, and if you're not on the first two lines, it's crazy. But parents are looking to make the next move. I see it every year at Cushing. Good. Like I wrote in an article a couple of years ago. It got a couple of people upset, but I basically said a kid at Cushing who was on the fourth line would have been on the first or second line at other prep schools, and it's true. The same goes for Dexter, Thayer, Avon, Salisbury, Kimball Union. It's the same every year, but I think too many people are kind of making that jump too quick. Like, oh, I'm not playing here. I got to go to the next place, and so I definitely think there's something to that, but I just think puck touches are so important that if you're in the stands, maybe wait a year. I think there's definitely a benefit, like you said, but I also think there's nothing wrong with waiting a year, because for the most part, no one's going into Hockey East until they're 20 years old anyways. People around here like to try to push things, but in reality, the good players are 20-year-old freshmen, except for the Jack Eichels of the world. It's
the Mike Mottos of the world.
Now, do you think that that process and that mindset could be rooted in the younger levels, like you kind of referenced, though? It was like team jumpers we've talked about before, and not being satisfied with wins and losses per se, or whatever it may be, whatever someone's dissatisfied with. But do you think that has kind of crept along so much that it's still kind of playing a role in this movement?
Absolutely. I think people get used to it at a young age, where there's super teams. I don't really watch anything below bantams, but you hang around the rinks enough to know that the Eagles are good, the Islanders are good. Everyone eventually joins the Eagles or the Islanders in that EHF, or mid-Fairfield if you're a Connecticut kid, or a New York kid. And I think because of that, everyone's kind of used to the jumping. But I think that's another thing that I emphasize, the proceed with caution, because college coaches are going to ask, why is that? Again, this doesn't really apply to mites and peewees, but if you end up going from BC High to Dexter to the Valley Junior Warriors or the Islanders NCDC team, coaches are going to start asking, well, why does this kid move around every year? I give a great example. A couple years ago, there was a kid who had top 20 talent in his age group, but he played on 4 teams in 1 year, and he was committed to a Big Ten school before the year started. He's now decommitted from that place, and he didn't get picked in the USHL. And it's the character, it shows. And you see it almost every year in the USHL, where a kid doesn't get picked who should be picked on talent alone, and then you go to his elite prospects page and you see he's played for 3 different teams.
That's interesting.
Yeah, no, I actually had a similar conversation with somebody recently, and it all does, and I coach at the junior terriers, the younger levels, and we've just tried to, we make a couple moves here and there. That's kind of my philosophy. It's not like an uprooting of the team. And, we try to improve and get better. And we've been fortunate. We have good coaching, and it's kind of attracting for people to come to. So, I coach at the 09 level, which is Pee Wee minor, and at the Squirt minor level. And, I have guys like Mike Greer and Nick Bobroff and guys that played the game, you know what I mean? So it's attractive for people to pick up the phone and call or send emails, which is a good thing to have. But, I was talking to a parent, and I'm like, if a prep school coach, which is probably the next step, right, knows that you went from the Breakers to the Bandits to the Kings, then the Terriers, it's like there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, where's the loyalty? And that's not the perception you want to give off as a parent. And maybe it wasn't the kid's fault, right? But if you're constantly, and you said it in your piece, the grass isn't always greener. If you're constantly looking and thinking that, then it's not good.
Well, I think you just brought up a great topic. Is it's not always the kid's fault, and that's what makes it even worse, is the fact that these kids are getting negatively impacted because their parents are crazy. And I always say this, hockey parents are not crazy. There are some hockey parents that are crazy, but I talk to a lot of hockey parents around the rinks, and 95, 96, 97% of them are great people. And I hate when they get lumped in as all crazy, but so I want to make that clear. But if you
sometimes that 3% can feel like they're the 97 though.
Right. I mean, this year, watching some, the younger the games you go to, if you go to a bantam game, the parents are crazier there than if you go to a prep school or high school game. And I was in Youngstown a couple weekends ago and watching some 15U, and parents from New Jersey screaming up and down the stands, and it's just, and everyone's kind of giggling, laughing, like, haha, that's funny. But I also think at the same time, like, a lot of people are like, well, I know whose kid that is. Probably not going to draft him in the USHL or suggest that he get committed to a college team, and he's a pretty good player.
And why deal with it? If I'm a college coach or a high end junior team or whatever, it's like why take a risk on a kid like that I know is constantly, is his father or his advisor or whoever is going to be constantly blowing up my phone when I got to deal with that, as opposed to going out and game plan for the next weekend's game, right? That was another thing you brought up, and I wanted to touch base with, was talk about the role of this so-called family advisor, which I guess is like a short-term name for a potential agent, right? Can you talk? You know much about that?
Yeah, I mean, I hear almost once a day from someone asking me, who should I go with? Should I go with anyone? And again, I think it's another one of those, there's an exception to every rule, but for the most part, you don't need an advisor or an agent unless you're 15, 16 or older and have NTDP interest, have Division I interest, have USHL interest. And there are good advisors, there's bad advisors. There's guys that can help you, there's guys that can't help you. And unfortunately, I think hockey parents are vulnerable because, if you played, even if you're an athletic dad who played sports growing up, but if you played baseball, basketball, football, or even hockey back in the 80s, like, you don't really know what's going on because
it's changed.
It's changed, and it's the only sport that you have so many options. Like, if you're a really good football or baseball player in Mass, you might play Legion, you might play AAU, but you pretty much stay at the high school or Catholic school you chose to go to, and you stay there until you graduate. I don't really know much about soccer, but I think it's pretty similar with club soccer and play for your high school team. Where hockey's, you could play for Hingham High, and Hingham High has some great teams. You could play for ISL. You could play prep school. You could play full season. You could play for the Boston Advantage. You could go to the USHL. There's just so many different options that I think that's how some of these advisors prey on these parents, because they tell them what they want to hear. And like I think I said in the piece, make sure your advisor or potential advisor tells you, here's your strengths, here's your weaknesses, this is what you need to do to get to the next level. I hear it so often when I'm standing around the rink in Marlboro, with the 9 rinks in New England Sports Center, and you see these advisors and they're like, hey, if you come with me, like, I know so-and-so, like, I'll have you in the North American League next year. And that's just not right. It's flat out wrong.
Now, is there some value that they can add as far as navigating the landscape? So you said there's good, there's bad, between prep schools, that
Right.
full season option, staying in school, so in like a public scenario. Yeah. So, some of these parents are, employing these people to, kind of help them with the decision-making process. Have you seen some good results on that end?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's similar to, the hockey parents, where there's good advisors, bad advisors, but there's advisors that help, help you get to that next level. And if they can help kind of, guide you through those difficult times and challenging, situations where you don't know what the next step is, I think that's great. And, there's certainly some great advisors around here that have track records, that have represent NHL clients, represent NHL draft picks. And I just think too many people jump into it, and I see it all the time where parents are like, I can't believe I trusted this guy. But I feel
guy
bad.
just wanted you $4,000.
Right. But again,
right? Or whatever the price
Right.
is.
And I feel bad that you got, in a bad situation, but I also at the same time, like you don't hire, I say to parents all the time, you wouldn't hire a plumber and electrician without Googling them, making sure they're licensed, making sure, they don't look, they're educate,
You want to look at some of his work before.
Right. Yeah, like educated's maybe not the right word, but you want to make sure that the plumber, the electrician, the lawyer, has done something that is worthy of hiring them before you let them come in and knock down your bathroom to build again, or kitchen or whatever. And so I just think it's parents have to be cautious, have to do some research. There are good advisors out there, but I think there's so many of them, and there are a lot of advisors that can't help you, and it's that simple.
I'd like to thank one of our sponsors, RD3. If you want to combine the best athletic pathway with the best educational experience, you need to have a plan. If you believe you should prepare your child for that path, not just prepare the path for your child, then you should seek an experienced partner. RD3 Education and Advising Center draws on almost 30 years of experience to help you achieve your goals. Founder Ray Diffley was a respected prep school and college hockey player, a prep school hockey coach, and went on to serve as director of admission and financial aid at Choate Rosemary Hall, where he spent 23 years studying character and student development. Ray now runs RD3 Education and Advising Center, specializing in student growth and development through the character lens. RD3 helps families maximize their educational and athletic pathway for their son or daughter. To take your first step towards your goals, visit RD3, that's the number 3, education.com, and sign up for free news and information to help you on your journey.
Heck of a job at that, Reed Motts, and I think Ray's education platform and everything that he does, it ties in exactly what Jeff is talking about, right?
Exactly.
Finding that right path for your kid. Obviously, looking at the character and the education piece is most importantly, because there's only a certain amount of there's a very, very minor percent of these kids that are going to end up, playing professionally, and we want to, you want to raise good kids and good athletes first and foremost. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Kind of that. It goes back to character, really, and that's why you referenced a couple of kids not getting drafted, and the team kind of digs into that character. The skill set speaks for itself, but bouncing around and not being loyal and kind of sticking with a certain program, again, it's case by case at times. I'm sure there's scenarios where you have to move and kind of find the best path, but to program jump consistently and how it can negatively affect is really what we're talking about here.
Well, I think you should want to be a good person, and you should want to be well educated, and for all the right reasons. But even if you're just doing it for the hockey reasons, there's only 60 Division I college hockey programs. If you're a good student and you're a nice kid from a nice family, you're going to have all 60 of those places to go. If you aren't a good student, and I realize that not everyone can be a good student, but if
guilty.
Same. But no, I just think that's something that's forgotten, because Cornell, year in and year out, is one of the best college hockey teams in the country. If you're not a good student, that eliminates Harvard. Same thing. And if you're like a Holy Cross or a Colgate or St. Lawrence, schools that are in the Atlantic Hockey or ECAC, that if you're not a good student, that eliminates them. So like it's not even just the top 10, and I'm not trying to pick on Colgate and St. Lawrence and Holy Cross, but they're not in the top 10. Those are schools that a lot of kids can kind of aspire to hockey-wise without being an elite hockey player. But if you're not a good student, you can't get into those places. And and like I said it in my piece, and I say this all the time because there's a lot of great Division III hockey being played in New England. Middlebury, Norwich. Trinity's always really good. If you're not a good student, you can't get into any of those places. So, I just think being a good student, and that that's, I don't care how smart you are, but if you're jumping from place to place to place every year, it's it's not going to be as easy to have that track record of being a good student.
Yeah, and to your point about shrinking that pool of 60, Coach Cavell at UMass, my son, and it was like 75 kids, 100 kids kind of went around to a couple different schools, and they had it was a USA hockey event, and the coach and some players spoke, and he talked about that, not just the education, it was like really conducting yourself properly with social media and kind of doing the right things and having that character base, so that you don't shrink your pool. You want to grow it, you want to keep growing it to that 60, but if you kind of make some lapse in judgment, even just on that social media stuff, because they go back and look at it. And then of course, the studies and the educational part to do whatever you can to, put yourself in the best position to expose yourself to those 60 schools. And I thought that was a great message.
Yeah. No, there was a kid just this year that had his commitment to an Ivy League school taken back because of some things that he did when he was younger. And it stinks. You can argue whether it's fair or not, but you gotta. That's something that parents should be telling their kids. From I don't know, 12, 13, whatever. Like once they start going on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is. It's not like maybe in like 1960s or 1970s, if you hanging around with 5 of your friends, you said something stupid. Guess what? No one knows besides you and your 4 or 5 friends back then. I'm not saying it was right then or wrong now, or whatever, but it's things have changed, and you have to be accountable. And the hockey world, like another thing is the hockey world's so small. Like it's not like basketball. I think has 320 Division I schools. So if one coach thinks you're a jerk, there might be 305 others that willing to give you that chance. And in hockey, I think I see it all the time. Coaches talk to each other. There's not that many prep schools. There's not that many full season teams, junior teams. Coaches are talking all the time. It's I think that's something that everyone has to be aware of. It's not football. It's not basketball where there's a million teams and not everyone knows each other. I think everyone knows each other in hockey, and it's just another reason to be careful with what you do. Whether it's rushing from one place to the other, or how you conduct yourself, or whatever.
I got 2 more things for you. To go back to your agent piece and things like that. I think that all ties back into picking the correct coach and it kind of leading you through that journey, especially at that youth hockey path, right? If Mike Motto's coaching your kid and he knows your kid and you have developed a relationship, he can pick up the phone and call any coach in the country and they're going to know who he is, versus Joe Schmo, the agent, what I mean, or the advisor for, that works for so-and-so. They're going to trust Mike's opinion, and I'd like to say myself a heck of a lot more than just some random guy that's wearing, that's got a slick back hair and a long leather jacket. You know what I mean? And same thing. We talked about it. Like Hingham High School, for example. Motts and I were just talking about this, I think, yesterday. Like, you look at, if you're a Hingham kid, which obviously isn't possible for everybody, but you have Bobby Allen, who was an NHL defenseman, unbelievable player, working with the defense. Ricky Schuick, who was a great player at Northeastern. Like, there's two guys that, if you have the opportunity to go and play and learn under their tutelage and they know you, you're gonna benefit from it and dominate that level, and then go. They're gonna tell you, hey, you know what, Johnny, at this time it's time for you to go. Like, go to prep school, go to juniors, go wherever. Those guys, they're hockey guys, and they're gonna actually they're going to say, hey, you've done what you can do here, and now it's time to make that next step. Right?
I think the same thing could be said at like a BC High, and I give John Flaherty so much credit.
Yeah,
like,
Flash is the same way, exactly.
He played at a high level. He's won with the GBL Bruins back in the day, won a national championship. Roche there played at Brown. And
He wouldn't have won those without the Yandel family, though, just to go on
I heard
record for that.
Yandels, and he compliments the Yandels and the Ryans all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, like, but he's done a good job of having good players, but also letting them go.
Telling
to that
them when
next
to go,
level,
right?
like
Ryan Shea, we talked to one of our
good
first
point,
episodes, and Ryan, he stayed there 3 years, and then he told Ryan, he's like, hey, it's time for you to go.
Right.
Spread your wings and take the next step.
And same with the Kramer brothers. The twins are at Thayer now. The older one's at Babson, and and the older one was a great high school hockey player.
Yeah, he was.
But there was no reason for him to chase greener pastures because he ended up graduating from BC High, a great school, played a year at juniors, and now is at Babson, which is a great school. Jamie Rice is a great coach.
Awesome coach.
All great things. And I just think, but there are some bad examples of coaches that do try to hide players or not, push them. So I think, when you have someone like a John Flaherty who, does the right thing, does right by the players, that's so important. And, the same could be said for Hingham. And like I've watched a lot of, Middlesex League this year because there's a lot of really good players in the Middlesex League. And I say this to people all the time. There are better players in the Middlesex League than there are in any full season team around here, except for maybe the Advantage in Mount St. Charles, and yes, it's, there's the depth isn't there, but there are good players. And people are always like, oh, you got to leave Mass High School. I don't think it's true. I think if you're a good player, you'll be found. And, I think you have to leave eventually, no matter, even if you're at prep school, like Ryan Shea, if he was at Dexter, he should have left. He had to play for, Youngstown that year in the USHL. But it just drives me crazy. Chris Kreider played 3 years at Masco. There's other guys that played, at Linfield or Marlborough that ended up,
Zach Sanford played it. We
Pinkerton,
interviewed him.
yeah.
Pinkerton. I'd never even heard of it before.
Yeah.
I was like, what's that?
Blake Belfay, my roommate at
Yep.
BC, was at Framingham High for 4 years.
Yeah.
But even recent example, Chris Kreider's making $7 million in the NHL right now, and he played 3 years at Masco. I mean, I think outside of people that live within 30 minutes of Boston, people probably don't even know what Masco is.
No.
Because it's a 3-town regional high school. But he moved on when the time was right. And I think there's a lot of people that, get lied to and think that they have to play for such and such team. But I just don't think there's a right answer. There's kids that play full season that are in the NHL. There's kids that, Jack Eichel played. I don't even think he played 16U hockey. He played in the Empire League, the old EJ.
Mm-hmm.
There's, I don't care if Jack Eichel played for Chelmsford High. He's, he would have been in the NHL right now. I think that's another common mistake is that, it's great to promote your program alumni and be happy for them, but I think too many people take too much credit for what happened. I think you either want it or you don't want it, and I don't I just think Jack Eichel, no matter where he went, he's in the Buffalo Sabres right now.
Yeah. I mean,
And there's other guys
he's a rare talent. Obviously,
But
he's a freak.
Right. Yeah, he could have played lefty.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
But I think obviously.
But I think to your point, when you get to that midget and that it's sink or swim time. Not sink or swim time, but you either really want it and make it kind of your life and dedicate yourself to it, and develop good off ice habits, on ice habits, practice, do skills, work and take care of your body, and you really want to take the next steps, or you're the kid that kind of is like, I'm really not that into it, and you start messing around and you're hanging on the corner, and all that type of stuff becomes real. The other thing that I had for you, and then we'll let you go, is this early commitment thing. Now you see a kid that you see different college coaches, they're waiting outside the Children's Hospital, giving kids jerseys and things like that, and it's you have kids committing in 7th and 8th grade to these colleges, and what I think gets lost is that it really doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? If you don't continue to develop and progress on that path, that school very easily can be like, hey, you know what? We're all set with you.
So the NCAA last May, not May in 2019, made it so you can't commit until August 1 before your junior year now. So that's kind of alleviated that stuff.
That's
but
good.
You know, I think to your point that I actually wrote an article about 2 or 3 weeks ago that looking at the 98s to the 02s in New England, and I think 53 kids just from New England alone were decommitted.
Really?
From
Wow.
98s to 02s. And some of them decommitted to go to a better, some of them, it was their decision. Then some of it was very much, like you said, the school's decision. They decided, you know, hey, you didn't develop the way you wanted. We're moving on from you. And I think, I really believe that a lot of the early commitment was kids saw on Instagram or Twitter that so-and-so was committed, and they were like, well, I'm better than so-and-so. I want a commitment. Or they wanted to be able to tell the girls at the party on Friday or Saturday night that they had a college commitment. Like I talked to dads that, you could just see it. Like there were kids that made commitments at the first one they had, and then they realized, oh, like I'd rather be at BC than, Army or, Union. Like BC has either commits or players on their team now that were committed to Union, Army, and those are obviously great schools. But like, if you grew up around Boston, you want to play for BC, BU, UNH, Maine, Providence, Northeastern. Like you don't want to, I don't think anyone really is dreaming of going to Union. And I think, and I don't.
Even though Rick Bennett up there does an unbelievable
he does a
job,
great
and he
job,
developed
yeah.
he developed some serious talent.
And I don't, I'm not trying to criticize any of the kids that have done it, but I think too often people get upset about the decommits. I don't really think it's as big of a deal as people say. I don't have the facts obviously, but I would imagine it happens every day for regular kids. The girl that got into Providence then gets into BC or Harvard and decides that or the girl gets in somewhere else and decides she wants to go to Providence. Like, I just don't think it's that big of a deal. But people on Twitter, all the fans and some of the media, love to criticize it. I don't think it's a big deal. I think it happens every day in the real world. If you don't do a good job at your job, you're gonna not be, your contract's not gonna be renewed.
I think the NCAA did a better job at kind of setting that standard when they put that back in there, or put it in, because before it was you couldn't sign until your I think it was after your junior year, right?
So you still can't sign a national letter of intent until your senior year,
right? Senior year.
But you can now commit.
So the verbal commitment is after the junior.
And that's the thing. A lot of people kind of don't really understand. These verbal commitments don't mean anything,
Right? And that's kind of what I was getting at with my question. Well, I think we could sit here and talk. We could talk for hours. It was great. Obviously, to all your listeners out there, make sure you're subscribing to the New England Hockey Journal, checking out Jeff's prospect pulse. He's got a real he's got it down to a T, and he's in the ranks. And I think that's the biggest thing. You're out there, and you know what's going on at all these different levels, and you're not just promoting prep school. It's great to see you writing different articles about the public schools and things like that. I think that's awesome. So make sure to all your listeners out there, log in and check out Jeff's daily articles and things like that.
Yeah, I want to thank you for coming on, as always. Great analysis and great piece. It was a great piece. It kind of touched on so many different things, and for your listeners, check it out and pull something away from it. So we'll have to have you on again real soon.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Do you want to skate fast? For 50 years, Laura Stam instructors have taught youth players to pros how to skate correctly, powerfully, and fast. Players who attend Laura Stam power skating programs learn how to skate fast by learning how to execute every maneuver in hockey. They become powerful, stable, efficient, and explosively fast skaters. If you can't wait for a clinic, join our subscription skills video service, and we'll show you the skills taught at our clinics in an easy-to-use video format with training plans to guide your training. Register or subscribe now at laurastam.com. That's LauraStamm.com. You can learn to skate fast. Are you a hockey player in Greater Boston looking for a better training and development experience? Ready to take your game to the next level? If the answer is yes, then listen up and check out the Boston Imperials, Massachusetts' fastest growing hockey program, designed to prepare boys and girls players for Tier 1 AAA college and professional hockey within a highly professional training environment with full-time and non-parent coaches. With teams ranging from mites to U18, players are provided maximum opportunities for improvement and development, as well as exposure to coaches and scouts from the prep school, academy, college, and professional ranks. To learn more about the program and offerings, visit bostonimperials.com. Again, that's bostonimperials.com. Contact them today and take the next step towards taking your game to the next level. Visit bostonimperials.com. Once again, that's bostonimperials.com.
All right, and our next guest on the Rink Shrinks podcast is a three-time Olympian, winning silver medal in the 2010 and 2014 Olympic Games. She also captained the U.S. team to a gold medal at the 2018 Winter Olympics. A fellow Cushing Penguin like myself, Meghan Duggan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Go Penguins. I like the shout out to Cushing.
Exactly. That's a place that's near and dear to our heart. It's a great place. I was lucky enough to spend 2 years there, and we loved it. But we'll get to that stuff.
Oh, thanks for coming on, Megan. It's a pleasure to have you. Can't wait to hear some of your experiences and your path to where you are today.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited for the discussion.
So, Megan, just walk us through kind of, your start to your hockey career. When did it all begin, and when did you fall in love with the game?
Yeah, such a great question. One I've been finding myself answering a lot lately, but really, I grew up in Danvers, Mass, pretty prominent hockey town, great youth program there. And I started skating when I was 3 years old. I had an older brother, Brian, that played. A lot of my family friends and, my parents' friends, kids and all that all kind of rallied around the rinks. And so my parents threw me out on the ice for a learn to skate program when I was 3 years old. And I just fell in love with it from day one. I quickly kind of graduated from the pushing the milk crates across the ice to, sticking puck side of it. And really my passion just kind of grew from there. I grew up playing boys hockey. There weren't a lot of young girls playing. There was no girls programs at all, at least in Massachusetts or New England at the time. But I was welcomed with open arms onto all the guys' teams I was on. And, you hear some girls my age or in my position that have horror stories of growing up playing with guys, but I literally had the best experience. And some of those guys are still my best friends to this day. So, kudos to them and their parents and everyone for really welcoming me as part of the group back then, when it was new and different. Right. And now it's, I envy a lot of the girls that maybe get to play on girls teams or, have all those opportunities, but I wouldn't change mine for anything. Wanted to be Ray Bourque, wanted to play in the NHL. That was all that I had seen at that point, until about 1998. I was 10, 11 years old, and women's ice hockey was in the Olympics for the first time. And that pretty much changed my life. I met a woman that played on that team after they came back with, the U.S. team won the gold medal, and they came back and they were sharing it with all their hometowns, and had an opportunity to meet a woman on that team. And it really just changed my life. And that was 23 years ago now, which seems crazy, but really after meeting her back in 1998, I started to build my life around that dream. I want to captain Team USA. I want to go to the Olympics. I want to win a gold medal. And then the rest of the story kind of fits in there in those 20 plus years.
Oh, that's amazing, to be exposed to the game. You mentioned your older brother, Brian. Were there any other influences early on in your kind of development that you can point to that really encouraged you to keep going and had a really lasting impact on you?
Definitely. And that's one of the biggest things I love to talk about right now when I'm mentoring young kids or, young athletes, boys or girls, is the importance of the people in your life, the importance of surrounding yourself with people that support your dreams, that are going to encourage you and challenge you at times, obviously, but in a way that that helps you move forward and not in a way that holds you back and tells you, you can't do this or you can't do that. I certainly had some of those, you know, in my life. Girls can't do this, girls can't do that when I was a kid, but I chose to surround myself with kind of my tribe of people and mentors and family members that lifted me up and challenged me, excuse me, in the right ways. So definitely my family. I mean, I mentioned my brother. I have an older sister, Caitlin, as well, and my parents. I mean, my mom, Mary, and my dad, Bob, just provided me with all the opportunities I needed, put me in a position to succeed. You know, they were those amazing, quiet parents in the stands that weren't climbing over the glass or screaming at me in the car, but you know, allowing me to figure out the game and to understand when I made mistakes or why, and just supporting me as a young kid who loved hockey and had these big dreams. I had excellent coaches in my life, all the way from, you know, my best friend to this day, you know, his parents growing up, the Hayes family from Danvers, Mass. They were two of my coaches. His mom was my coach. His dad was my goalie coach one year when I played goalie for a year. But just, they were my coaches in Danvers youth hockey for as long as I can remember, you know, all the way up to great mentors I had, Paul Kennedy at Cushing. And then, you know, I was fortunate to be coached by Mark Johnson at Wisconsin. So a lot of great coaching mentors in my life. And then, you know, those women on the 1998 team that I just absolutely idolized and still do. I mean, I have now a friendly relationship with someone like Cami Granato where we, you know, we text or we see each other at events and things. And I still get nervous, you know, seeing her and thinking about the impact she had on my life. So a lot of different people. I mean, I could laundry list it, but just that's, like I said, that's a big thing I talk to kids about, is the importance of surrounding yourself with those people in your life and respecting those relationships, you know, and getting out of the bad ones.
Oh, that's great. It's funny. Tara Mounsey, who was on that 98 team, I played with her brother Mick at UNH, and now I'm actually coaching her son Liam. And she's been, you know, a great resource to have for us as coaches too. Just somebody that sees things from a different perspective, and was such a competitor and just a great, you know, obviously a gold medalist. And it's been a real treat to get to know her this past year, and a lot of fun. And like you said, just continue to, you know, for myself as a coach, and Mike's the same way. We like to surround ourselves with as many good people as possible. One thing that you know, with you in playing, like if you were looking at the path now for girls, where you know, girls hockey is starting to become bigger and bigger. There's a lot more girls only programs and things like that. I have a couple girls that I coach that are great little players, but at what age do you see, like, okay, this girl should maybe transition and go play with the boys and things like that?
Yeah, such a great question. And I get asked that question a lot. And I obviously I'm very in support of the growing girls game, to see how many young girls have registered. I think if you look at the registration numbers for USA Hockey, it's just like skyrocketed in the last 20 years. And it's so exciting for me to see the growth of the sport. And I encourage, you know, there are some girls that just, you know, they want to play hockey and be on a team full of girls because that's awesome. And they want to hang out with their friends and do all that. And that's fantastic. You know, there are girls that want to play with boys as well. And I support that. You know, in addition, as I mentioned, I grew up and I played with boys until I was 15 years old, pretty much until I went to Cushing. And I would not have it any other way. I loved my experience. I think it challenged me. I think it made me, and this is just my personal experience, I think it made me a better player, a tougher player. I think it developed me in areas that I needed, and I loved it. So I really think that I think it's up to the individual player. I think that if, you know, and their parents obviously making that decision, you know, the world is a different place now. So you have to take into account those factors and, you know, locker rooms and other parents and things like that. But, you know, you're going to know what's right. I think have a conversation with your daughter. You know, where do you feel more comfortable? You know, is she the type of player that wants to play with the boys, wants to get banged around a little bit out there and, you know, and then give it back a little bit. I was that type of player and I loved it. And my parents, you know, encouraged me and supported me, as well as the parents of my teammates and, you know, the leagues that I played in and stuff. But it's not for everyone. So I think that it really is on an individual basis. My biggest piece of advice is you've got to have fun playing hockey. You have to. And that starts from the parents. That's with the kids, the coaches. If a girl wants to play girls hockey, awesome. Let her do it. She wants to play boys hockey, awesome. Let her do it, you know? And I don't think there's any problem with either way.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, you referenced Tara Mounsey, BY, and we were the same age, and she was playing for Assabet, I believe, at the time, and she was one of their best players. It was, checking Metro League, old school Metro League, old rules, and she just hung in there, and she really, really elevated the level of play out there at that age, and it was so fun to watch her kind of progress through and win that 98 gold. And my sister got to know her as well, but coaching, we had a girl, Rebecca Malahi, join our group, and she was a goaltender, and just that dynamic, like to your point, she really wanted to play with the boys, and she really, she was playing girls, and it was a real focus, and she was determined to do it. And I had her in practice a few times, and she was great. Like her movements, her attention to detail in the crease, and she pushed our other goaltender, and it was just a great dynamic to have in the locker room as well. And then as far as my daughter, I have two daughters playing. One just started last year, and she's just working her tail off to kind of play catch up, and she's doing great. And then my younger one started, and she's playing both boys and girls. So a girls travel team, and then the boys in the town. So it's boys and girls. There's a couple girls on the team. So that dynamic is great. And like you said, it's up to the individual, and she loves both right now. And at some point, you're gonna have to probably make that decision. I would say maybe around checking if that's the case. If they can't maybe withstand some of that physical play, but I think that's a great advice. Surrounding yourself with good people, and then also with this situation, like letting the kids kind of make their decisions and just have fun and enjoy it.
And right? Like, I mean, the parents know, the kids know. I was 14, 15 years old. I mean, you could have a 14-year-old, 15-year-old boy who, maybe he's the same size as me at that point. He's 5'6", 120 pounds. You could have a 15-year-old boy who's 6 feet tall, 190 pounds, right? Yeah. And we're going into the corner together. And, I'd love to say that I'd take him down, but at that point, maybe not. So I think, when the time is right to make that transition. But I would say, as long as you can embrace it and want to and are having fun, then this shouldn't be an issue.
Would you say that by playing with the boys at that older level, especially like you said, at that, 14, 15-year-old where the kids got, some kids got a mustache and others obviously haven't hit that puberty age yet. But would you say just picking up on those tendencies made you a better hockey player and how to think the game a little bit more? And obviously, you're not going to race into the corner versus some guy, some boy that's 6 feet tall and think that you're going to withstand a hit from him. And I guess my question is, did that help your overall IQ and understanding of the game?
Yeah, absolutely. And, as I said earlier, I think, and again, this is just my opinion. It's the only way that I lived, right? It was my path, but I feel like it helped me tremendously. And I did play full checking with boys in Pee Wee and Bantam for, 4 to 5 years. At that point, I don't know what the rules are now, but I played 2 years Pee Wee, 2 years Bantam with boys. And, I developed into a very physical player on the national team as well, that I was one of our bigger players, and I would never shy away from an altercation or standing in front of the net and not being moved and, creating chaos at certain times when needed. So those were all huge tools in my toolbox as an Olympic athlete that I definitely think, I developed at some point along the way, started to develop them in playing, boys hockey.
I can attest to that. I think it was 2014 when you guys trained up in Belmont Hill and at the in Bedford there.
Yep.
So remember, we played. You guys played a couple games against a group of retired. I played a few times against you. And I remember going in the corner kind of dipsy doing it. And I'm getting a shoulder from one of you guys. I'm like, Jesus, what is going on? Just got ran over here.
That's so funny. It's always a funny dynamic. I've done that on all 3 of my Olympic tours where we've played varying levels of boys, men. I think there was a couple, like Tom Pody was out there with you guys. So there's some, some high level.
I think it was, just NHLers that I got, like Mike Greer had just retired, Jay Pandolfo, Tom Pody. There was a good, chunk of guys guys that just got done playing and no, Mike Greer is not a small guy, that's for sure.
No. Yeah, but the dynamic of you know, we're like, you know, nose to the grindstone every single day, training at like the peak of our career, right? And we're, you know, physical, and these, you know, we play these men's teams or these guys teams that are thrown together to help us out in our training, who obviously, you know, Mike Greer can't be running someone through the boards who's about to go to the Olympics in a week, but we're going full tilt against him, right, and throwing a shoulder into him. So the dynamic was always interesting, but such awesome to know that you were a part of that, because all of those games were instrumental in our development and our you know, in our training, and just, you know, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, just getting, you know, different tools out of your toolbox, you know, like playing against certain body types or sizes or skill levels or abilities, or, you know, the way that brains think. You know, being able to play against all those different levels really helped us develop, you know, different tactics or different styles, or made us think differently about everything that we needed to do in order to prepare to go into the biggest games of our life. So those are just really, really fun games. But there was always that like physical imbalance a little bit, where we'd be trying to slam guys and they're like, wait, I thought we couldn't hit you. But yeah, no, it was fun.
Yeah, as far as some of the mailbag questions that we've got, you know, they've asked about checking, and we've referenced the women's game as a great example on how to check, because although it's not, you know, in the rules to actually, you know, check, but checking is just separating the person from the puck, and that's what you guys do so well. And if you watch any of the high level games that you've played, you know, especially that 2014 gold medal game against Canada was one of the most physical games I've seen. I remember watching it. I was down in Florida, and I just very intense. Let's just put it that way. But as far as the, you know, the actual checking, you know, techniques, you're going through the hands a lot. You're in good body position. You're using your feet and angles to accomplish what you want, and that's separating the person from the puck. And I think that's a great kind of lesson for coaches to look at and kids to kind of watch. And, you know, I've watched plenty of highlights and games of you, Meghan, and you did it better than anyone out there. So that's something that we, you know, we hear on the Rink Shrinks. We're talking about that checking kind of dynamic and the technique behind it. So could you talk to us a little bit about some of the things that, you know, kind of you know, someone you modeled your game after, and how you could apply some of that stuff?
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's definitely, I've certainly, you know, probably found myself in the penalty box a little bit too much over the years in the women's game. And that early on
That's
in
the
my career,
Cushing
probably,
mentality. That's the
yeah,
Cushing mentality.
yeah, definitely. Paul Kennedy sat me down a few times. Do you want to win a gold medal, or do you want to spend your whole career in a penalty box? No, but to your point is I had to evolve, one, when I transitioned from the, you know, the boys game to the girls game. But also two, you know, when you transition level to level and you're trying to find, to your point, new ways to, in the women's game, separate, you know, body from puck, right? Going after the hands, you know, keeping your feet moving. As you mentioned, there's a lot of ways in women's hockey that you have to get creative, you know, to play physical with staying out of the penalty box. So definitely and also, you know, there's so many emotions. We play Canada, right? There's a gold medal on the line. You know, how do you not open ice blast someone when you want to, right? But you can't spend the whole game in the penalty box. So I think, you know, a lot of it is, as you mentioned, just, you know, trying to go after hands, trying to keep your feet moving all the time. You know, trying to, you know, be sly if you can, use your body in different ways. But it's, I think the benefit of that on the women's side too is that, you know, we're able to create a lot more plays, use our speed a little bit more, not get slowed down. You know, sometimes it's crazy when you see a woman coming through the you know, the middle of the ice with their kind of head down, looking back, thinking, oh my gosh, she would get blasted. And sometimes she does, but then you go on the power play. So, you know, you're able to find those ways around it too. But I think our games are definitely physical, and we just, you know, work and find those little ways to stay within the rules of the game while playing physical.
Now, was there a player that you kind of emulated growing up around Boston? I know you said you wanted to be like Ray Bourque when you were younger, just like that was like me too. But yeah, it was someone that you kind of like looked at and tried to apply some of the things that they were doing well.
I would say, you know, one of my favorite players for a really long time, and still right now to this day, is Patrice Bergeron. Obviously, you know, Boston guy, and I love the way he plays and commits to, you know, the two-way game. He's deadly in all three zones. You know, he's called on to kill penalties, to block shots, to win faceoffs, to score goals, to be on the power play. And that's the type of player that if I was a coach, I would always want on my team. I mean, you could grab him for any situation. And not only that, I think, you know, his leadership obviously speaks volumes. I think, you know, when you hear about different ways that players in the league speak about him or his own teammates speak about him, and kind of just the level of professionalism that he carries himself with, I think that's super important too. And it's a big part of the game, you know, when you get to an elite level. So I love him. I've loved him for a really long time. And, you know, would try to emulate him as much as I could. I don't know how successful I was at it, but yeah, just a great player to kind of look up to.
Well, I was texting my brother Keith and Billy Ryan last night and said that we were interviewing, and both of them were like, "She's the female Patrice Bergeron." So there you go.
No
So
way.
there's a couple
Oh,
compliments from you know, some fellow Cushing classmates, and I wanted
that's awesome.
to talk to you about Cushing, and what did that boarding school experience kind of do for you, and you know, going away, and like I said, I talked to my brother, and he was saying how, you know, yourself and Erica Lawler and Connor Sherry's sister, Courtney, you guys were, you know, anytime there was open ice, anytime there was, you know, so-called shinny going on, like you guys were out there with the guys playing and just constantly working to try to get better. So, you know, walk us through that Cushing experience.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'll gladly talk about Cushing any day of the week. It was four of the best years of my life. And first of all, love your brother. He's such an awesome guy. I love Billy Ryan. Those guys.
Keith thanked you for, you know, I think he was maybe looking over his shoulder at a couple tests of yours when you guys are in class together.
Yeah,
so.
potentially.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Allegedly.
Yeah, we won't tell Cushing about that. No, but I mean, one, like so many things I could say. I would just say, one, my Cushing experience as a whole, I learned and grew as a person and hockey player tremendously. I would recommend that to anyone. It's not for everyone, because, you know, you're at boarding school and it's, you know, you move away when you're 14, but for me, it was outstanding. You know, I met so many of my best friends. I was challenged academically. I was challenged athletically. And it was just the right choice for me. And I loved it. I mean, the community that you're a part of, there's so much to gain and learn. And I know that it was kind of the starting point for my, you know, my hockey career, my professional life, everything. So I'm a huge advocate for that school and just New England prep school system in general. And then when it comes to kind of our relationship with the guys team there, and Keith and Billy and Chris and Boomer and, you know, all those guys, they were, you know, you mentioned Keith saying we would come out stick. I mean, we idolized Keith, right? Like, he was my same age, but it was like, look at this guy. He's the best hockey player I've seen in the flesh at this school, you know, and the things that he would do. But not only, you know, when I think about someone like him, and again, you know, Brian Ewing and Chris Bork and Billy Ryan and those guys, they welcomed us all the time. They were, you know, say what you want about guys back in the day and how they treated girls playing hockey and this and that. Not those guys. Like, they would have us out there. I remember specifically we saw Keith, you know, did this like crazy move in a stick time game one time that, again, they welcomed us to play with them. They were always co-ed, but he did this move. And then the next day we were out on the ice at stick time, and, you know, he spent probably 25-30 minutes trying to teach us how to do it out of his training time, or, you know, his time that he wanted to work on something else. So I think, and not only that, but they welcomed us and supported us as part of, you know, just hockey players. There was never an issue over, at least in my eyes, there was never an issue over, we get this, you get that. I mean, they treated us as equals back then. And I will always kind of respect those guys for that. And in my opinion, had a great experience because of their support. You know, they came to our games sometimes when they could. And so it was a great camaraderie, I thought, between the boys and girls teams back then. And you know, Keith is one of my favorite players in the NHL to this day because of that and because of how great he was to us back then.
Oh, that's great. And the camaraderie and cheering for each other and stuff like that is, the community-based, the community atmosphere that's built up at Cushing, I think is second to none. And obviously I was only there for 2 years, but I loved it and it was great. And my brother just named his dog Cush after
No way.
Cushing. Yeah. So
That's awesome.
there you go with where it stands in his heart. But another thing I wanted to bring up, and this is something we talk about quite a bit on the podcast, is, while you were there, you were a multi-sport athlete. You were the athlete of the year for, I think, 3 years, but, you played softball, soccer, lacrosse, along with hockey. Talk to us about how important those other sports are. Because I think, what we find is a lot of this specialization at a young age. And, Motts and I are really against that. And there you are, a future Olympian, Olympic champion that was in high school for 4 years playing multiple sports. So can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah. And I'm right there with you guys. I mean, I couldn't be more anti-specialization. And again, it's something else that I talk about when I'm mentoring young kids. And I know, I get the climate's different or this and that is what people say. But one, I can tell you that 99.9% of the women that on my team that I've played with at an elite level, all three sport athletes in high school, all multi-sport athletes growing up. And I 100% attribute that to my success as a hockey player. I was so passionate about playing those other sports at Cushing, whether it was soccer and, I played softball my first 2 years. It ended up being not as competitive as I wanted it to be. So I switched to lacrosse for those following 2 years. But not only from when I think back, the mental break that we all need from the rink, right? I'm an elite hockey player. I've dedicated my whole life to playing hockey. And yes, I too need a mental break from the rink. And I've learned as I've gotten older in my career where to take that or where to fit that in. I'm sure if you asked Keith or asked some of the other guys that top players in the game, they need a break, right? You need to get away from the rink. So the important aspect of that, but also just, from a physical development standpoint at that age, the different muscles that you're using, the different things that you're targeting, different hand-eye coordination or different things that you're developing by playing these other sports. If you want to play hockey long-term, or really, it's only going to help you. So I'm a huge proponent of multi-sport. I actually specifically remember it was like my junior or senior year at Cushing, and I had committed to play at Wisconsin, signed my NLI and all of that. And I was obviously going to go on to play hockey in college. And I had a lot of people say to me, well, you're not going to play your senior year of soccer, are you? At Cushing. And I didn't even think twice about it. Of course I am. I've been with this team for 3 years now. I'm the captain of the team. I love soccer. I'm so competitive in it. And, oh, you're going to risk blowing your knee out and this and that. And it's like, I get in a car every day and I could get in a car accident or I could twist my ankle walking to class. So it's like, I still, have to do those things. So it was that important to me, not only mentally, physically, but again, just that, that commitment to a team, the leadership aspect and being challenged in different ways. It's huge.
Yeah, those transferable skill sets that you gain through playing other sports, and also it exposes you to another group of people, and a lot of times it's nice to spread out and kind of get different points of view from different people and in different sports as well. It's just different mindsets at times, but that competitiveness will never waver whenever you're in that team environment, though, which is the constant. That's really interesting. Like people kind of steering you away from what you want to do.
Right.
Trying to protect you enough. But I went through something similar. I played football my senior year at fall. I hadn't even signed yet, and people are like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just want to." I want to go knock someone's, in the head. So I was like,
Yeah.
went out there and, but anyway, that competitiveness is something that we talk about, that internal burning desire to be the best you can be in whatever you do. And, that's great to hear that you played all those sports, and that's a great lesson for all these kids. So you went on to Wisconsin to play for Mark Johnson out there, and what a gentleman he is. He's a super guy.
Best.
Yeah. And being an Eastern player, born and raised here in Boston, Could you talk to us a little bit about that decision? And, did you have some other options to stay local?
Yeah, definitely did. I get this question a lot. It's just one of the, and it comes up in conversation a lot. I've since, either befriended still have mentors that are some of the coaches that recruited me that were in Boston. And it's just, it's funny to joke about now, but I think, definitely looked at, the top schools in the Boston area as well, Harvard, BC, BU, Northeastern, like all fantastic schools for women's hockey. There's a great little, pod of them kind of around, but Wisconsin was just, absolutely blew me away in all areas, whether it was, the community, the coaches, the team, the school, the city. I went out there and I did my due diligence. I visited a million schools like everyone does. Back then you had to set up all your official visits, and now they're like a thing of the past because everyone commits when they're like 12 years old. So you're not even old enough to go to an official visit, but man, they were the best. And I think they should bring those back. I think they should find a way to bring them back because it's so fun. But so I went to all my official visits at all these different schools, and I said, okay, I'm going to narrow it down to these 4 or 5 that I'm going to take my official visits on, and I'm going to make my decision after. And I did that, and I had a fantastic time at all the schools. And I flew out to Wisconsin with my parents, and it was just everything I had ever dreamed of and more. And it still is. I mean, that place it's unbelievable. I wanted to play for a school that was, big time, Big Ten athletics. You look at not only how successful the women's hockey program is, but being a part of that culture on campus, and the football team and men's hockey and men's basketball, women's basketball, volleyball. It was so fun. And so I take so much pride in being a Badger because of that sports culture. So I loved that. And then obviously, I wanted to go to the Olympics and win a gold medal, and who better to learn from than the guy who, led the team to the 1980 Miracle on Ice gold medal. I mean, his professionalism, his coaching style, the manner in which he conducted himself and, coached his team was just second to none. And again, still is. I mean, he's one of the most successful coaches in the women's game, if not the most successful coach in the women's game. So there was just so many factors, and my parents fell in love with the city just as much as I did. So I know that, they had sent their 14-year-old daughter off to boarding school. And now here I was 18, 19 years old. And they're like, can't you just like play in Boston, but they couldn't deny it either. Right. I try to tell people all the time when you're trying to make that decision, and I coached at Clarkson University for 2 years where I was recruiting kids. And I say, like, you just know, like you have a feeling and you go with your gut. And at that point I was able to make the decision when I was an 17, 18-year-old kid. So I was a little bit older than the 12-year-olds these days making those decisions. But you know what you want, and you're, almost an adult, and you can feel it. And it's a gut decision, and it's an important one. So, but yeah, I mean, I was blown away by Wisconsin. It was no question I was going there. I think I said to my parents on the plane ride home, I'm calling them as soon as we land. So but it was great.
That's great. And obviously, I mean, you had a successful career there. As soon as you stepped onto the campus, you made a significant impact with the team, and eventually won the Patty Kazmaier Award as Mott's can attest. He's a Hobie Baker winner, so the top player in the country, which was pretty special.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's what an honor, right? And Mott's, I'm sure you can speak to it as well. Just a special time for my team and myself and my family. And we ended up, the day after I ended up winning that award, we ended up winning the national championship, which just, capped the whole weekend and the whole season we had as a group. But it was definitely a special thing to share with my family and my teammates.
Yeah, I always say it was a weak year when I won it. So no, but as far as the decision to go to Wisconsin, I think you made the right one. 3 national championships, 1 runner-up. and some decent numbers. I don't know, 108
Not
goals,
not too bad.
238 points, and 159 games is just okay. But your success there is amazing, and the lasting effects that you had on the campus. And so I'm guessing you made the right decision. So that's good to know. But like I said, Mark Johnson, I've had the opportunity to know him a little bit, through USA Hockey, and like you said, his demeanor and his approach to the game, and his just overall, he's, like I said, a gentleman. But when you look back and see him as a player, wow, he could play. And so being able to translate and communicate what he was good at, and get it across in a great manner is such a skill, and he's done a great job, and he's continuing to do that. So that's great for Wisconsin.
He could outskate us and outplay us all in practice even then, and I'm sure it's still now. I mean, he's I don't want to age him, but he's got to be 60 years old, maybe. I don't know, late 50s. I don't know how old he is, but I'll never forget. He was a super quiet, humble guy, right? As everyone knows, but every once in a while in practice, if you would get revved up about something, and he would say, "You want an assist? Give me the puck. You want an assist? Give me the puck." Right? And he could score on command. It's just like, what a natural goal scorer, an amazing guy to learn from. I mean, those are the types of coaches that are so fun to have, right? Because he's trying to teach you something, and he'll say, "Oh, well, this is exactly how you do it right here." And you watch him, you're like, man, I got to emulate that. So he's just an awesome guy, great coach.
I got to use that line in our practices.
There you go.
Thanks, Mark.
It was a good one. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. The obviously after a successful career at Wisconsin, then it was time to move on to the representing your country. Talk to us about that experience and wearing the red, white, and blue, something that is just obviously amazing in itself.
Yeah, so special. And obviously I mentioned earlier in our conversation about my dream and my goals that I set for myself when I was 10 years old, right? I want to go to the Olympics. I want to win a gold medal. I want to captain Team USA. And so setting those goals at such a young age, and then, say 8, 9, 10 years later, finding myself before the Vancouver Olympics, I kind of got into the mix a little bit in 2007 and 8. And I went to my first national team training camp and played in my first world championship with the big girls, right? With the senior team, with these women that I had played in the last couple of Olympics and I had idolized and looked up to. And I'll never forget that first tournament. I mean, just wanting to emulate those women, just thinking, I can't imagine ever being that talented or that fast or that good. And just, trying to soak it all in, trying to learn from them. But also, being proud of what I had done to put myself in a position to get my foot in the door there. And just, being so proud, as you mentioned, to wear the red, white, and blue and represent your country. And, when you're on a roster of 23 women that are, really representing all of women's hockey in our country, it's pretty special. So never took it for granted. I obviously was fortunate to go on and play in multiple world championships and Olympics and have a 14-year Team USA career. But, every time I put that jersey on, literally it was one of my pregame routines. I would look at it and just say, like, wow, this is special. I've wanted this my whole life. This could, you never know, right? You have to work so hard to make every team, every camp, every opportunity. And so just tried to never take it for granted, and always understood what it meant and how important it was, and who I was representing. That was a huge part of it.
Well, a lot of your teammates, had some quotes in some articles, and one of them was she was a great example to be fully committed to, fully all in, whatever she put her mind to, and that's like in practice habits, leading by example, and that was infectious, so being able to lead by example, as far as the U.S. teams, and it showed on the ice, and that's something that we talk about all the time, about importance of practice habits and being able to focus in that short amount of time that we have, with our kids, but you're at the highest level and you're dialed in, right? You're trying to find that edge, find that focus, and execute to the best of your ability. And that's a trickle down effect that, we can reinforce to the younger kids. And that's something that your teammates said that you're very, very good at pushing people in practice. Is that something that you think that, kind of set you apart from, some other teammates or some other players, and was part of your leadership mentality?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to think that, and it's obviously it's such an honor to hear any of my teammates or competitors make mention to that. Certainly something that I prided myself on my entire career. I think obviously when you're a young athlete trying to grow and learn and get better and make something of yourself, that has to be an aspect of your game. You have to show up and you have to give whatever it takes and take advantage of the time and the opportunities and the coaching and all of that. And then so I think I tried to build that foundation, as a young athlete, and then obviously developing into a leadership position, being a captain at Cushing and then eventually a captain at Wisconsin and with the national team. My mentality was always, how can I ask so much of my teammates and push my teammates and hold them accountable, obviously, if I'm not doing it myself, right? If I'm trying to challenge my teammates and lead us in the right direction, and I'm saying, we should do this, or we got to do this, or how's everyone doing in this aspect, or what are we struggling with? I need to show up every day. And if the bar is here, I need to be here. Because how else do you convince people to let's get on board, let's move this this team in this direction, let's do this together as a group, if you're not pulling your weight. So that was something from a leadership perspective. I mean, it's the accountability piece is huge, and with that is also I needed my teammates to trust me. If I'm saying one thing or I'm asking something from a teammate of mine, like they better be able to trust that I'm doing it too. And I took that like to heart every single day in my training, off the ice, on the ice. If I was taking days off physically, as I mentioned earlier, we all need some days off physically to help recover. I was mentally tuned in sometimes and challenging myself in ways that I knew that I would make gains that day for my team. And that's just kind of been my mentality, and it's grown throughout my career.
I think that's amazing advice. I mean, I try to implore the, kids who are leaders to do the similar things. You need to do it yourself, be the hardest worker. You don't have to be the best player per se, but you work, do put the work in. So then when you are leading and you have to hold someone accountable, then it's more credible.
And your teammates see that on the ice. I'm sure you see that with your kids, right? You're playing these mini games or battle drills, or you're doing these different flow drills. Your teammates, like those kids that you're coaching, they see the kid that's going hard. Mm-hmm. They see the person that's given that extra effort, and they don't want to be left behind. And so that's, you want to challenge yourself and your teammates to just up the whole level of the whole group.
Yeah, that's great advice for leadership, and it's something that you can control too.
Exactly.
And that's they're very important.
Yeah, that's great. Obviously, you had such a successful international career, winning 7 world championships and 1 silver, and you fell short a couple times at the Olympics where you ended up with silver medals. But at the 2018 games, you guys were able to capture gold, and you were the captain of that team. Talk about that experience with your teammates.
Yeah, I mean, just the purest joy. Aside from the day my son was born, probably the purest joy I've ever felt in my life. Just the accumulation of so much hard work as a group, and being rewarded for transforming our program and the way that we played and the way that we saw the game. And you mentioned I was part of the 2010 Olympics and the 2014 Olympics where we came up short of our ultimate goal, right? You don't go to the Olympics in women's ice hockey and think, or in any sport, you don't go and think like, oh yeah, silver, like that would be awesome, right? I mean, I don't, run on a treadmill till exhaustion picturing a silver medal. So while I'm so proud of those medals, right? It's, you have to own it and say that we came up short of our ultimate goal. And in 2014, it was just, we gave the game away, and we lost in heartbreaking fashion. So after that game in 2014, I had a tough time mentally. I had to figure out, what was I made of? I was the captain of that team as well. Felt like I'd really let my team down, couldn't lead us to the gold medal that we worked so hard for and deserved, and beat myself up a little bit. But, you can only dwell for so long, right? I had to kind of pick myself up and figure out, what are you made of, right? Are you going to do this again? I physically, like many times, looked myself in the mirror and asked myself all the hard questions, like, who are you? What do you want? Why do you want this so bad? And how are you going to do it differently now? right? And that became a mantra of our team. You can't stay the same and expect a different result, right? So what are we going to do now in these next 4 years? Because we expect a different result, we demand a different result, and we will have a different result. So how can we as a group, from our staff, our coaching staff to our GM to our support staff to all the players on the team, all the junior players in the program, how can we transform and be different so that when we find ourselves in 4 years in that game again, we get a different result? And just kudos to the whole group for committing to that for 4 years. And that's what I mean by just so happy for the whole team that we were rewarded, because those were not easy 4 years, as you guys can imagine. And, we, from all aspects, just mentally, physically, technically, tactically, we completely changed the way that we played, saw the game, thought the game. And it was a transformation, but it worked. And so it was just, being able to celebrate together as a team and with our families on the ice. And it was special. And I think, also just validating our team's on ice success after the big, we had a big gender equality boycott and kind of uprising with USA Hockey about 16 months before that. So it was just a culminating moment of a lot of great things for our group.
Yeah, I jumped ahead of myself. I was going to ask you about that boycott in 2017, but I got a little too excited thinking about gold medals.
Yeah, no worries.
I was going to ask, next, what's the, I guess, where would you look at the state, now post-career, you've retired, where would you look at the state of the women's game and professional hockey? I think has been kind of a subject in the news as of late, but how do you see all that stuff and everything with the professional game?
Yeah. Newly retired. So I'm just, trying to kick back and enjoy my retired life. No, I'm just kidding. My son doesn't allow that for that, but yeah, no, I right now for me personally, I'm obviously, trying to figure out exactly what's next. I think, in a few different areas, I've committed a lot of my life to, especially as of lately, is just, advocating for underrepresented groups, for being a voice for social change. And those are certainly important topics for me that I'll continue to work on in and out of sport. I'm, enjoying being a mom and all the challenges that come with that. And then I'm definitely continuing to hope to have an impact in hockey, and whether that's, helping to continue to push the women's professional side along, hoping to potentially get into working in men's hockey as well in some capacity. But I think, on the women's professional hockey side, we're not where we want to be. I've played over my career since I graduated in a few different women's professional leagues. I'm currently a member of the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association that was formed about 2 years ago now, really with the ultimate goal of creating a long-term sustainable option for women to play professional hockey, right? So for some of your daughters, if they want to get paid to play professional hockey and not have to work part-time jobs or have sponsors or, live with their parents, really to create this league that women in professional ice hockey deserve. And so a lot of hard work going in there. It's a group of, 150 of the top female hockey players in the world right now, and definitely all the national team players between the US and Canada. So a lot of great movement there, and just in this last week, partnerships with both the Toronto Maple Leafs and the New York Rangers. There's a first ever women's professional hockey game coming up at the end of this month at Madison Square Garden, which will be really, really great. And just, some other great sponsors that have come on board and helping out with that group, and, Secret Deodorant and Bauer Hockey, Adidas, Budweiser. Got to have that token sponsor in professional hockey, right? So no, it's just, it's an ongoing process, right? We're in the thick of it right now, right? We're in that, those original 6 days where you're just, you're grinding it out and you're trying to work hard to push for what women deserve, and what we know it can be, right? There was times where they've said, well, no one's going to come watch you, right? And I've been a part of teams where we've filled an NHL arena with 18,000 fans that love women's hockey. Or, you look at How many multi-million people turned in to watch the Olympic gold medal final in Pyeongchang, and on the East Coast stayed up till 2 a.m. and had their daughters watching the TV. And so it's those things that inspire us, and know that there's, a huge future in it. We're not there yet. There's still more work to be done, but it's going to get there. And I'm excited. Like I said, I'm excited for a day where, a woman can play professional hockey and make a living out of it.
Yeah, and as far as the amount of people that you've impacted with your personal, career, your playing career and what you're doing now by giving back and motivational speaking, and but moving forward, being an inspiration and being a driving force behind not only the women's game but also getting in to the men's game. There's a lot of opportunity for you ahead, Megan, and we wish you the best on that. And whatever it may be, managerial or whatnot. So we wish you the best, and that's something that we'll be rooting for.
Megan, we can't thank you enough for your time. You're truly one of the the greatest players to ever play and represent this country, and a true pioneer in the women's game and everything that you're doing. So we really appreciate it, and hopefully we see you behind the bench at the very least, coaching young George, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for your time, Megan.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Are you an elite hockey player looking for a better training and development experience? Are you ready to take your game to the next level? If the answer is yes, then listen up and check out Boston Hockey Academy, Greater Boston's only hockey academy offering an advanced Tier 1 AAA hockey experience within a real brick-and-mortar school environment. With teams ranging from U14 to U18, as well as options for postgraduates, players are within minutes of prestigious Division I college programs for maximum exposure. To learn more about our hockey, academic, and dormitory experiences, visit bostonhockeyacademy.com. Again, that's bostonhockeyacademy.com. Contact us today and take the next step towards playing college and pro hockey.
Okay, thank you to those guests. Obviously, that was great insight and great interviews with those guys. It was a real pleasure. It's now time for the mailbag segment of the session number 14 here. We got some good ones. Don't forget, you can reach us on Instagram, on Twitter, all our social media platforms, as well as our phone number, that 3476-SHRINK. We love getting those voicemails. It's nice to put a voice with the story or question, and it's fun to have a little bit of banter with that stuff. But you want to start us off, Mats?
Yeah, so this is from Mike in Minnesota, buying sticks in youth hockey. I've coached youth hockey in Minnesota for 14 years, and it drives me crazy when I see a squirt or a mite player showing up with a $100 plus stick, or a peewee with a $200 plus composite stick. Could you please give some insight on how youth players should look into buying sticks? And these parents are spending too much money on technology that their players can't even use yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a touchy subject because I think a lot of these kids, they see the sticks that are being used on TV and they want something that's like them. I would, if I was growing up, when I was growing up, my father got wooden sticks from his high school team, right? And they were obviously adult type sticks,
and they bounce off the back of a truck.
Yeah, exactly. But they were like Christian Brothers Say No to Drugs sticks. You remember those things back in the day? And,
good Minnesota boys.
You used to you cut them down and you just used them, and I don't think it really, again, you're not using at the mite age. It's not like you're really flexing the thing. But nowadays it kind of looks ridiculous when you see a kid that has like a senior stick that's cut down and the blade looks too big and stuff. So it's a touchy one. I think I wouldn't go crazy. Like, you're not going to get that top performance out of your stick yet. So if I can save myself a few bucks, I wouldn't be spending $200 on a stick for a 7, 8, 9-year-old. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. You can still get a good stick for a decent price for the younger kids. To the point, you want it to be small enough so their hands can wrap around it. So that's why it's appropriate for that size, appropriate to the age. And as the kids get a little bit older, a $200 plus stick, can be beneficial to a kid who can use the flex of the stick properly. Whether it be a snapshot or a slap shot. Again, you're equating dollars to performance, but sometimes you can still have a good stick that's affordable or below that threshold.
Yeah.
So it's really as the player increases in ability, it's not always because of the stick, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, it's
It's the player, not the weapon.
Yeah.
There,
Sometimes it's tough because there is a lot of marketing of the technology that the kids eat up, and they want to kind of, they think it might help their game or whatever, and on some levels it does, but at the end of the day, you want to work on your game, and it isn't always the equipment that helps.
Right. Our next one is a little bit about sticks as well, from Jim in Wisconsin. I coach just over the board in Wisconsin, and I have a lot of first-generation hockey kids / parents. As a result, I see kids with sticks that are too long, kids who buy sticks and don't have the skill to use the curbs they need, Eichel, McDavid, etc. Kids who don't have the proper flex, no knob at the end. And for older kids, I have a theory that these new composite sticks lose their pop over time. I have seen kids get a new stick, and it will change their shot dramatically. Have you seen this?
Well, I think they do get a little dead.
Yeah.
As if they lose their pop.
It's like a baseball bat that loses its pop, right?
Yeah, and that flex point and the kick point there can, it just gets dead. And I've actually had it happen to my sticks, where I'm trying to put everything into it and it's not even coming off the ice. But so
because you get a muffin.
Exactly, that's what I thought. But then I got a new stick and it was coming off with less effort. But is
that mental too, though?
Yeah, I think no. I honestly, with my situation, I think it was definitely
the stick.
Yeah, I mean, because I wouldn't break them. I would use them for like 2 weeks at a time.
Right.
And every day, and in games and whatnot. But
I always tried to get a new stick every game I played.
Yeah, two freshies.
Yeah, at least one new guy.
But as far as the stick too long, the curves. That's something that you can direct people to look online. Even there's simple research that you could do. We had the basic guidelines on cutting your stick. Off the ice, it's at your nose. On your skates, it should be around your chin, and then you can customize it personally. If you like it a little shorter, a little longer, within reason.
Yeah.
Curves. The big banana hook shouldn't be in play, but a nice little toe curve. I think a higher lie is always better right now to help the kids, operate in by their hands. I mean, by their feet. I'm saying this stuff, and I had like the worst stick. So, but if my advice is to go down that road now, and because I wish I had a higher lie as I played, but I went so far low that I was just a passer. So
yeah, exactly. No, I think it's funny too, and as you get more and more comfortable, like we've talked a little bit about this, is kids taping their sticks. Like they kind of find what they like at the top of their knob and stuff like that. One of the craziest things I ever saw was when Riley Smith was in Florida with my brother for a year. He had no knob on his stick, like it was just
I think
bare fiberglass, it was crazy. But that's obviously, I mean, the kid's in the NHL. Yeah. He's an unbelievable player. Like, that's just what he was comfortable with doing. You know what I mean?
I'm sure the equipment managers weren't happy if he's ripping up the gloves every game.
Yeah, that's true too. But I some guys like those knobs, those skins type of things that you can put on, and
your brother likes those, right?
Yeah, I like those as well. Obviously, when I get them for free, and then the grip tape and stuff like that it's all good, and it's all kind of with your comfort level of what you have. But I agree, there's definitely, sometimes the sticks too, they do lose their pop a little bit, and the puck doesn't explode off it. But that's more at the older levels when you're talking about, hitting one-timers and that type of stuff, or maybe really leaning on it and going from there. Speaking of that, in the flexes, our buddy Joe Bartel he fixed up a stick for my son, and he was coming to camp the other day, and then my two idiot kids were messing around, and the older one ended up snapping the stick right in half. So now it's got to be double integral.
The blade repair didn't even what wouldn't
It didn't even get tried out on the ice.
Yeah.
We didn't even make it to the ice. It was them sitting around the locker room screwing around, and now I got to deal with that. So, yeah, good stuff. So, Joe, we'll be seeing you soon.
We got another one here. Amy in New England regarding our 11-year-old going to be cut from an EHF team, searching for new team amid league restrictions and secretive discussions.
Oh, boy.
My son is a 2010 Tier 1 defenseman. We were a new team this year, and by January, we realized we were probably not going to be mutually separated by the team or from the team. A discussion with the coach confirmed that he was not interested in having my son continue with this team next year. Can you discuss your approach to finding a new team in an environment of league restrictions and secretive discussions?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you talk to other coaches, maybe send some emails out and see if there are other teams looking for a defenseman or whatever position your kid may play. And obviously, if he's going to be a cut player, then I don't think the coach would mind if you really went and maybe tried to skate it with a couple teams before tryouts and just, maybe they like what they see and we're going to talk more and more about this, and then you got to go through the tryout process and see where you stand. Maybe the right levels, just going back and playing for your town team, right? Mm-hmm. or whatever it is.
But yeah, I think that's a good. I mean, if you're not welcome back or you're not in the plans for the next year, have that. You can ask the coach if it's all right if he goes and skates with another club. Just who's looking to take a look, and they can make a decision from there. But that's And again, it's a great question because it's not everyone is in the position of being wanted all the time. So to find a new home and put yourself in the best position for securing that spot, I think is the best thing to do.
Yeah, we got another one here. This one was from Instagram. What was the name? From Tommy Boy. Greetings, fellas. Big fan from California. Can you guys go in depth on how the sponsorships and gear selection works in the NHL? I see call-ups wearing CCM, and then the next year they're wearing Bauer or Warrior if they're studs. Are all their gear free provided by the team? I probably read that wrong. Is their gear free provided by the team? I'll say yes. Yeah, the team's definitely going to give you that stuff, especially at the pro level. Or do all the players have to be signed in order to wear the brand they have? If you boys got to choose which brands you were sponsored by, what brand would that be? Keep up the good stuff.
Yeah, so as far as the AHL and CCM, they have a deal in place. CCM was aggressive and went out and signed a deal for exclusivity to all the players in the AHL, so all the pants, gloves, sticks in particular. And when they get called up to the league, it's not like they're gonna be switching right away because their comfort level with that stick that they've been playing with. So it was a good approach, I think, by CCM. They make good product too. I mean, It's not like...
I think it's evolved a lot in the last handful of years. CCM sticks and things like that have really come a long way.
Yeah, and then, there's certain players that would be paid to wear certain equipment. Sometimes you have to kind of ask, be like, hey, can I get maybe some golf clubs or something out of it? That's what
Couple Lululemon gift cards.
Yeah, but there's a lot of options when you get to the NHL after you kind of want to make a change out of the CCM. You're not, under contract anymore to wear or use CCM after you get to the NHL, but a lot of people stay with it because of the comfort level.
Right. Especially that first call up and stuff.
Yeah.
But oftentimes you see guys after a week or two and they're kind of settling in. Now they go back to Old Faithful. If they were a Bauer guy before, maybe they start using their sticks and stuff like that. I would say skates, for the most part, guys get to kind of choose whatever they like to wear. If that CCM deal is more for the
correct. The pants,
the pants, gloves, helmets, sticks, all that stuff, and
skates weren't in there. You're right.
Skates weren't in there, but they might give you CC. Like when I was playing in the Coast, it was like Reebok, so I knew I could get probably a couple pairs out of them if I used their.
They give you a little tickle.
They give you a little tickle. You know what I mean? So that was that was always good. But I think only the high end guys are the ones that are really getting paid, right? And you can speak to that. Like the superstars are the ones that the Eichels of the world. Yeah, obviously he's in a deal with CCM. You see him in commercials. He's gonna get paid. Eichel with Bauer, right?
Certain guys that can like.
Everybody else is gonna get a few bucks here and there, like you said. Maybe some CCM's got I think they're owned by the same company as TaylorMade.
It's Adidas, and then you
Right.
trickle down, and CCM's under that umbrella, so you get a credit to golf clubs. And stuff. But that's nice though. I wish I had that now.
Yeah, exactly.
I need a new set.
Yeah, but as for our favorite brand, I kind of changed throughout time. I think the first ever one piece I got was an Easton that Ray Bork gave me, and then when I was in college, I used those, and then I made the switch to Bauer, and now at this point, I'll take anything that's free. My brother sent me a few one pieces that were CCMs with the Officer Roscoe little slogan on it, which I need some new ones. He sent me a few, and I'm on my last one, so I'm definitely due. So I'll take anything at this point. But the CCM stick that I have, it's a good curve, but for the most part, all those big major brands now, Bauer, Warrior, CCM, those different, they're doing a good job with them.
Yeah, I used CCM and Easton, and then
Easton at first, the sticks I thought were the best.
Yeah,
but I think these others have caught up.
Yeah, and Warrior was really the only one that was willing to make my nasty pattern.
Yeah, there you go.
So I used those for a while.
You used those for a few. You're still rocking a throwback twig.
Yeah,
I can attest. I was on the ice. The skates are falling apart. We got to hook Mott. Mott's got to get some gear upgrades. And you know how I am about the style points.
I know.
It's the laces have been through the ringer. The back heel's about to fall off. So if any Bauer guys are listening, Mott's, maybe send your size out there.
Yeah, I just look at it.
I've gone with the Bauer wheels. I've always
those
kind
are
of
good.
been comfortable with.
I say those are just character. Just
character.
Like Forrest Gump in his sneakers.
When I got done playing, the last skate I wore was a 6.5, and I have a size 10 shoe. So then when I started coaching, because I used to like them just crammed in, and then now I wear like an 8.5 or whatever they are.
Spacious.
Yeah, now they're a little bit of room when you're spending multiple hours on the ice. But I was like, I remember trying to run a skills clinic when I got done playing out there for 3 hours in a row, and the 6.5s, my toes were screaming at me.
Yeah, you need that extra room for some layers of socks.
Exactly.
So we got another one here. Sean from Mass. Friends trying out for the same team / parents approaching coach to ask about all or nothing roster spots. My son has expressed interest in trying out for a select team. 2 of his friends and teammates are also trying out for the same team. What are your thoughts on one of the parents approaching the coach beforehand and asking about spots available for next season, and suggesting that if one of the 3 boys makes it, the team should take all or none of them? I want my son to make it based on ability and not be left behind because someone else did not.
I'd be wary of that big time, because a lot of times a team doesn't have that, so doesn't have room for 3 guys. So you approach it as an individual, and the coach is going to take who he wants. But the package deal thing, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, if you having turnover, and there's an opportunity to get 3 players that are of quality, though.
Yeah, and you need them.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
But
if you're going to lump yourself into a package deal,
but if it's like a negotiated thing, it's not as appropriate in my opinion. But if you have different conversations with it and they just happen to come, but this scenario isn't that. So
how well do you know those people too is my question, because I've seen it done before where it was a package deal and then
someone gets gassed.
Somebody gets gassed and the other guys are like, "Oh, sorry. We want to be here."
Yeah, but that thing over there at that place. Oh, well, we'll see you next year.
Yeah, I didn't have any other options. Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thought we were together on this. No, sorry, we're not. So I would be careful with it.
Yeah.
The old package deal. This one's from Mike in Pittsburgh. Goalie parents standing behind the net. Oh, man. Wanted to hear your thoughts on goalie parents who stand on the glass behind their son or daughter who is in net inevitably it leads to the kid looking at them nuts, right? Take a seat and relax.
I like your approach, Mike. But that, you know what? I get that the parent wants to be down the end of their son or daughter to see them a little more closely. So I'll give it, if they switch ends with the goalie, that's fine, I think.
But standing behind them?
Not right behind them, but like if they're down that end of the ice.
Yeah.
It's, forwards parents change ends.
Yeah, that's crazy too.
I mean, but, I actually
I can see standing to the side or whatever, not standing directly behind him. I had another guy I saw recently that was putting like video up, like a video camera behind the net. I think it's crazy. The other thing that drives me completely bananas with goalie parents is giving the hand signals and doing that stuff, like, whatever, tie it up, go out and play it. Like, it's just as bad as a forward. Like, why are you different? We yell at the parents to not coach from the stands. If you're a defenseman or a forward, the goalie should be the same thing.
Yeah. I was standing down the end of the opposing team's goalie, and it was the goalie's parents or father, and putting the mouth like between the little where the door is, so he could be heard a little bit more. And and she was definitely listening to him. And I don't know, but I don't. And like I said, I don't.
Hockey helper thing, whatever the hockey handy helper thing.
Yeah, the H3.
The H3, yeah, that's.
Yeah, I don't mind the parent being down there because you want to see a kid up close a little bit more, and they're in a fixed position. So it's, but
there's a reason why the goalie coach isn't standing in the net next to him too. Like, let them go out and make the saves.
But like Mike in Pittsburgh said, take a seat and relax.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, just sit there. And
I like that.
Just relax. We got another one here from John, who's he's a college coach and a very involved hockey guy, John Lounsbury. Will the game ever be given back to the kids, or is it forever lost in what the parent can get their kid on the fourth line of a super team? Is it just me, or when we grew up and played, the super teams were strictly invite only, team mass for the Chicago Showcase, etc. So,
yeah, so it kind of goes to kind of what Jeff was saying, and the parents being heavily involved and kind of having these expectations through their kid that being on that super team, even as a fourth liner, is more valuable than getting the touches on another team. So, you can go around in circles about this, but I don't know if it will ever be given back to the kids. It's gone this way. The landscape has been, changed dramatically since we came through. But I think if you can navigate it and still have a level head about some of the decisions that are being made is really the most important thing. Just take a breath at times and not knee-jerk react and make those decisions to jump from team to go to these super teams to just make a sound decision.
Right.
It's just not it's not that difficult if you kind of take a breath and understand the situation and then kind of work through the best situation for your son or daughter. And if you do feel like the fourth line is on a super team is the best thing, then go for it. I'm
create your own path.
Yeah.
But then the I think a lot of it's age specific too, because you see a lot of this stuff that they think of 10-year-olds, they don't make some super summer team that's going to be traveling to some of these crazy tournaments, and they're like, oh, my career's over, and it's far from over. So just relax, enjoy the process, be a good kid, a good athlete, and it'll all work itself out.
Exactly. Well, as far as next episode, we have a few more thoughts on tryouts, some off-ice training, the off-ice training tools that, can help a player be more effective away from the rink and making it fun as well. And we'd like to thank our sponsors again.
Yeah, once again, thank you to the sponsors, Paul Vincent Hockey, Laura Stam, the Boston Imperials, the Boston Hockey Academy, and RD3 Education. We wouldn't be here without you guys, so we really appreciate it, and Eric Siemens and the New England Hockey Journal as well.
So that's a wrap for the.
That's a wrap. Good job. Good job.
The session. So thanks for making it easy on me.
Good work. Thanks to everybody involved.
Thanks for listening to New England Hockey Journal's The Rink Shrinks. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher, or listen at hockeyjournal.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at NE Hockey Journal, on Instagram at New England Hockey, and follow us as well on Facebook and Linktree, or subscribe to the New England Hockey Journal newsletter, hockeyjournal.com/newsletter, to learn when the latest sessions of The Rink Shrinks will drop. The Rink Shrinks is a Siemens Media podcast.